Vanna is sitting in her room typing her latest blog post. Her walls are plastered with pictures of celebrities with stuffed animals on the bed, and oddly enough, a bunch of anti-Spider-Man posters. She tries to block out the noise of her parents yelling downstairs. She writes, "Today I ran to that creepy new costume guy, Spider-Man. The one the Bugle's been writing about. What a total weirdo." Earlier that day, Vanna was sitting on the bleachers in her cheerleading outfit, watching the school's lead jock, Flash Thompson, doing what he does best. Bullying some science nerd kid from their school, Peter Palmer or something. Her attention was broken when the distant sound of sirens and shouting filled the air. Someone yells, "He's robbed an armored truck!" From above, a man swoops down on green, feathered wings clutching a stolen bag of cash. He shouts, "Flee, you idiot teens! Flee before you attract too much of the vulture's attention." Vanna continues to type her blog post. The others ran like sheep, but me? I stood my ground. Nobody tells me what to do. A voice from under the bleachers shouts for her to move, and 2 strands of web shoot up, wrapping around the vulture's ankles just as he tries to escape. Vanna fumes as she writes, "What a sicko. Hiding underneath the bleachers? Probably looking up our skirts the whole time." The vulture shouts, "Very well then, you've caught me. Now try holding me." With a powerful flap of his wings, he yanks Spider-Man up from the bleachers, pulling him into the air and throwing Vanna to the ground in the process. Spidey clung desperately to the webs as the vulture flew him straight into the field goal post. Flash Thompson, seeing the chaos, sprinted over shouting, "Spidey, is there anything I can do to help?" Spider-Man, still recovering from the impact, glanced at him. "Can you fly?" Flash hesitated. "No, but you can't fly either." Spidey smirked, shaking off the hit as he grabbed the chain mace from the training field. "True, but you don't have to soar like an eagle to toss someone the bird." With a swift motion, he hurled the heavy weight. It struck the vulture's power supply with a loud explosion, sending him spiraling downward. The vulture struggled, trying to escape, but Spider-Man wasn't about to let him get away. He sprinted after the villain, determined to finish the job. Meanwhile, Flash turned his attention to Vanna, expressing concern for her well-being and praising Spider-Man for saving her. However, Vanna's frustration boiled over. She snapped back. "He did no such thing. He put my life in danger, and is a peeping Tom to boot." Years later, Vanna types entry number 583 into her blog. An older Vanna sits in a room, which has matured with her, except for the anti-Spider-Man posters, which still hang proudly on the walls. She recalls a trip to the New York Science Museum, convinced Spider-Man had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to make his move. Suddenly, Spider-Man was hurled through the door of the ladies' restroom, crashing into the stalls. "Sorry, miss. Not my best entrance." "Hey, whoa, what are you?" He stammered as Vanna immediately started beating him with her handbag. Vanna screamed at him, accusing him of recognizing her from the bleachers incident with the vulture, and blaming him for putting her life in danger back then. Spider-Man, clearly confused, said, "Look, much as I'd like to reminisce or maybe get smacked by your purse some more, I've got some other stuff I gotta deal with now, okay?" He ran out the door, leaving Vanna yelling after him, still trying to argue. Suddenly, Spider-Man was thrown back into the restroom, crashing into a toilet stall as Vanna stood frozen in shock. Moments later, the looter stormed in. Typing into her blog, Vanna wrote, "So I'm thinking, this isn't possible. How could it be that Spider-Man yet again just so happens to fight some whack job while I'm around?" And that's when I started thinking about what the Daily Bugle always says. The Spider-Man is just as bad as any of them. Maybe they're even in cahoots, and that's when I realized that maybe, Spider-Man was staging these fights to impress me. I know, it sounds far-fetched, but if you're willing to accept the idea of a guy who crawls walls and shoots webs, anything's possible. Meanwhile, Spider-Man had regained his footing and punched the looter back outside. As Spider-Man prepared to leave, he turned to Vanna with a quick, "It's been fun, crazy lady. We gotta do this again sometime." Vanna gets annoyed. "Crazy lady," she thought. Can you believe it? Vanna, typing in her blog entry number 1479, continues. He showed up again today. This time, Spider-Man didn't say a word to her. He pretended to be too busy finding that Sandman guy, acting like he didn't even notice her presence. But Vanna could tell. She knew he kept glancing her way, and that was proof enough for her. She wasn't imagining things. She had seen him lurking around again recently. To her, it wasn't just a coincidence. It was a kind of sickness. Vanna had already told her therapist about Spider-Man, about how she felt like he was stalking her, but her therapist had seemed skeptical. Now, with this latest encounter, Vanna was eager to bring it up again. She couldn't wait to tell her therapist about the further proof that Spider-Man was indeed watching her. In her blog entry number 1621, Vanna writes with increasing frustration, "It's getting worse. Each incident closer and closer together." She was certain. It was clearly some form of sickness. This time, Spider-Man had burst into her cafe during a fight with the Rhino. Spider-Man simply can't keep away from her. All his supervillain pals are working with him, just so he can keep trying to impress her. She had tried to go to the police, hoping they'd do something, but the response was cold. Without real proof, there was nothing they could do. Even her therapist had been no help, brushing off her concerns as delusions. She had no choice but to dump her. Vanna had finally decided what she needed to do. She went to court and requested a restraining order against Spider-Man. The judge looked up from his papers in surprise. A restraining order against Spider-Man. Vanna calmly confirmed it. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm requesting he be instructed to stay 1,000 feet away." The judge questioned her further, asking if Spider-Man had been harassing her, to which Vanna replied, "Ever since my senior year of high school, yes." The judge also noted that she was an attorney, to which she explained that she couldn't afford one since she worked in cosmetics. The judge observed that Spider-Man wasn't present to contest the order, and Vanna responded, "That's his choice. He's been keeping tabs on me, so he must know I had this planned." She also mentioned that Spider-Man didn't have an address where a subpoena could be served. Despite the judge's skepticism about her reasoning, Vanna insisted that a restraining order was her best shot at peace of mind. The judge reviewed the papers and noted that Spider-Man had risked his life to save innocents, including her over the years. He remarked that the infrequency of these incidents, the lack of physical contact or spoken advances, made her claim questionable at best. Still, the judge recalled a case where someone had sued the planet Mars, claiming Martians were tampering with his brainwaves. The judge had issued an injunction, giving the man a sense of security. In a similar spirit, the judge decided to grant Vanna a restraining order, though he reduced the distance instead of 1,000. "I don't need you running in here for relief if Spider-Man happens to swing past 10 stories up." He added that Spider-Man posed about as much of a threat to her as Martians. Grateful, Vanna thanked him, but the judge ended with a piece of advice. "Just as an aside, young lady, you may want to consider getting professional help." Vanna, unfazed, responded, "With respect, Your Honor, I just did." After Vanna's blog post after taking action against Spider-Man, her moment of peace was short-lived. J. Jonah Jameson, the publisher of the Daily Bugle, immediately called her to seize the exclusive story. He praised her for her guts and initiative in filing the restraining order. Vanna explained that sometimes you have to take a stand. Jameson wished more citizens had her courage. He then told her he wanted to run a story on her, even suggesting that if enough people filed restraining orders against Spider-Man, he might be forced to leave town for good. He then shouted for Peter Parker to come in and take some photos. "Parker, get in here. Come earn your keep snapping something other than glory hounds." Jameson went on, presenting her as the brave woman who dared to challenge Spider-Man in court. "This woman had the guts to challenge Spider-Man in court. Hold up the restraining order, Vanna." Peter then asked, "Yeah, you challenged him? Face to a mask?" Vanna replied, "No, but I wish he had shown up. I'd have loved to settle the score with." She couldn't help but do a double take at the young photographer standing in front of her. "Have, we met?" Peter shook his head. "Nope, you don't know me at all." The headline reading, "Judge to Wall Crawler, Bug Off now hangs framed on the wall of an elderly woman's home, which is more filled with cats than family. Vanna, now an elderly woman, leaves her home with a bag of birdseed, heading out to a quiet corner of Central Park to feed the birds. As she scatters the seed, an older woman steps out from under a tunnel and approaches her. The woman remarks that it's been 40 years since Vanna made the front page of the Daily Bugle, and that she's been following her blog ever since. Vanna is shocked that the woman knew where to find her. The woman explains that in the mid-21st century, it's easy to track people down, especially someone like Vanna, who's been living alone in her parents' house for so long with no family, no husband, no children, and no real connections. Vanna, shocked, suddenly gets up. The woman orders Vanna to sit down and tells her that the restraining order she had against Spider-Man was pointless. Vanna insists it wasn't, claiming Spider-Man never came near her again. The woman scoffs, explaining that it was a miracle Vanna ran to Spider-Man as often as she did, in a city of 10 million people. She adds that if Vanna's life had been in danger, Spider-Man would have ignored any piece of paper and saved her anyway. The woman's harsh words make it clear that if Vanna still believes otherwise, she's a fool. Vanna, still in disbelief, challenges the woman, asking who she thinks she is. In response, the woman suddenly throws Spider-Man's bloody, torn mask into Vanna's lap. "I'm his widow, you idiot. That's his bloody mask if you want to check it out. If you think I'm lying, I have other proof." Vanna admits that she doesn't think the woman is lying. She had heard the reports of Spider-Man's death, but there had also been rumors that he had survived. The woman confirms that Spider-Man is truly dead, adding, "I suppose that comes as a relief to you." Vanna nodded, supposing it should. The woman continues her harsh words, telling Vanna that, as far as she can tell, Vanna has achieved nothing of significance in her life. She points out that Vanna hasn't formed any lasting relationships, loved anyone, or contributed anything meaningful to society. Vanna tries to defend herself, offering reasons for her life choices, but the woman cuts her off, guessing that's because her parents messed her up in some way. She acknowledges that it must have been awful. She isn't diminishing Vanna's struggles. Some people blame their failures on those who hurt them in the past, using their youthful trauma as an excuse for not achieving more. On the other hand, some use those same traumas to push themselves toward greatness. She reveals that her late husband was one of the latter. She says, "For all that you've accomplished, good or bad, right or wrong, you might as well have not lived at all." Vanna insists the woman is wrong about her. The woman stands up, preparing to leave, but before she goes, Vanna quietly admits, "I miss him. Miss thinking he was interested. Miss thinking I was special. I miss him, okay? Happy?" But the woman is already gone, leaving Vanna alone in the park with only the birds for company. Later, Vanna returns to her quiet home. She sits at her computer, bathed in its dim light, staring at the blank screen of entry number 15,270. After a long pause, she types, "Nothing important happened today." As she gazes at the words, tears begin to fall. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.